A very warm greeting to one and all. I am Mukta Tiwari, Assistant Professor, BA Department, IIMT College of Science and Technology, Greater Noida. The topic for today's live session is Gender, School and Society. So let's start the session. So, Gender, School and Society. The meaning and experience of being a boy or girl is not the same across different social groups. Reason and time period. Hence, the expectation of society in terms of role of boys and girls in different societies at different time will be different. It is very interesting and important to know how both boys and girls develop their gender identity and learn the role to be played in a society. This has been discussed in today's session. Through this session, you will learn how a student imbibe this gender role in society through a variety of institutions such as the family, caste, religion, culture, the media, and popular culture. Unequal access of education to girls is a well-documented reality. The concern of gender just education go beyond access to school. Gender identity construction is influenced by forces at home and in society. The seat of power and authority of the Indian societal context is more often than not firmly rooted in patriarchy. It is very important to understand how socialization into a different and specific gender influenced how we and other look at ourselves and other, and what opportunity for education we get. As a future teacher, we would understand and examine the role of schools, peers, teachers, curriculum, and textbook, etc., in challenging gender inequalities or reinforcing gender parity. With this purpose, we are expected to observe and study the distribution of role and responsibility in schools and classroom, rituals and school routines, process of disciplinary distinctly as for boys and girls, and in classroom interaction. So this session will also discuss representation of gender role, relationship and ideas in textbook and curricula, examine how school nurture or challenges creation of young people or as a masculine and feminine cells. Teacher need help to develop abilities to handle notion of gender and sexuality, often addressing the issues under diverse cultural constraint, their own and their students instead of shied away from the same. The formulation of positive notion of sexuality among young people impact larger issues. Perception of safety at school, home, and beyond. Identification of sexual abuse or sexual violence and its verbalization, combating the dominant societal outlook of objectification of the female body, and so on. So when we talk about this term like biological chromosome, hormones, and physiological point to the internal body, while the terms sociological, culture, psychological, and society are in general related to external aspect. we are clearly able to identify the difference in this term. The term which is describe the aspect of human body come to mean as sex, while the rest of the term describe gender. Rest of the term means sociological, culture, psychological, society. These are the external aspects. Sex and gender are like the two faces of the same coin. While the sex refers to the biological and psychological aspect, gender refers to the sociological and cultural aspect. Now, what is sex? The word sex comes from Latin word sexus, which is determined by a person's reproductive organs. Basically, it is a biological term. People are learned either male or female depending on their sex organ, that is reproductive organ and genes. It refers to the genetic and physiological characteristics that indicate whether one is male or female. Sex refers to the biological differences between male and female. It is related to the observable differences between their genital and to their psychological function in procreation. So basically, there are mainly two sexes, male or female. To determine sex, one must assay the following physical condition, that is chromosomes, external genital, internal genital organ, gonads, hormonal states, and secondary sex characteristics. Now, what is gender? The term gender comes from the Latin word genus, which means kind or races. So gender is basically a psychological and cultural term referring to one's subjective feeling of maleness or femaleness, or we can say masculine characteristic or feminine characteristic. Gender may also refers to the society's evaluation of behavior as masculine or feminine. The social and cultural definition of men and women are called gender. For example, it is the society that make rules that a girl will stay in the house while a boy can go out, and or that a girl will be given a less food to eat and less time to play than a boy. So it means that it is a society which decide that girls should stay at home to take care of family, while the male person or boy should go to outside the house to earn something. So it is basically a social constructed aspect. A boy should be sent to a better school. It is also believed that boy should be sent to a better school so that when he grows up, he can look after the family business or get a good job, while not much attention is paid to a girl's education. Because we know in Indian society, it is believed that girls after marriage, girls will go into a other family. So she will not stay forever for parents to look after them. So due to this social definition, the difference between girl and boy create two different words. Now, the concept and terminology of gender. Basically, gender refers to the role and responsibility of men and women that are created in our families and our societies and our culture. So, the concept of gender also includes the expectation held about the characteristics, aptitudes, and like behavior of both men and women that is femininity and masculinity. Because every families has their own way of thinking, every society, every culture have their different perspective about men and women. So the concept of gender always influenced by that their background. So gender role and expectation are learned. They can change over time and they vary within and between culture, because as we know, society is always changing from starting to till now. So the role of male and female is also changing. In earlier period, or we can say in earlier year, earlier era, the role of women is changed if we compare from in today's world, because society is changing. So the gender role and expectation is learned from their time. So they can change over time and they vary within and between culture. If we talk about in urban culture or in rural culture, there are different strata. So there in within or between in within culture, gender role is also changing because there are different strata. The system of social differentiation, such as political status, class, physical and mental disability, age, and more, modify the gender role. As I said, the gender we can learn gender role, and it is also depend on the what is the political status of any male or female, or we can say what is the class of male or female. For different class, gender role of gender are different. For different ethnicity, there are different role of gender. Same like physical and mental disability, there are different role, and this role is learned from that time. For different age, gender role is also different, and these modify gender role. For example, if we talk about the age, for young people, the role of male and female is different, while as they grow up to a mature person, or we can say middle-aged person, on that point of view, the role of male and female is different. So we can say the gender role is modified with time. The concept of gender is vital, applied to social analysis. It reveals how women's subordination or men's domination is socially constructed. As such, the subordination can be changed or ended. As we know, our society is patriarchal society. So initially it was the male dominated society, where male is the person who take decision making, who take lead in the family. But as we know, society is changing. Now the women come forward and leading in their own domain. So we can say the gender role for female is changing. It is not biologically predetermined, nor it is fixed forever. So we can say it is not biologically determined. It is not determined by our just because we are male or female, but it is constructed by the society, and it is not fixed. It is changing over time period. So it is an overarching variable, or in the sense that gender can also be applied to all other cross-cutting variables such as races, classes, age, ethnic group, etc. So gender systems are established in different socio-cultural contexts which determine what is expected, allowed, and valued in a woman's or men and girls and boys in this specific context. So as we know, in school, the boys and girls come from different socio-cultural background. They have different perspective. They have different experience from their own family, from their own community, from their own religion. So as a teacher, it is your responsibility, it is your duty to understand their mind and learn the balanced form of gender uh, education to their student. So gender role are learned through socialization process. How we understand, how we get to know that this kind of thing should be done by a girl, or this kind of thing should be done by a boys. This is come from society from which we belongs to. This is known as socialization process, and they are not fixed but are changeable, because every person has different they come from different society. Some come from rural background society, comes some come from urban society, some are very poor socioeconomic background, some are very rich background. So every society, every strata has their different way of perception toward their gender role. The gender system are institutionalized through education system, political and economic system, legislation, and cultural and tradition. How we got to know? We get to know our gender role through our tradition, which is coming from one generation to other generation. Our culture is also play a very important role in gender role formation. Legislation, economic system, political status, these are the also uh, uh, give the impact on a socialization process in when we talk about gender role. In utilizing a gender approach, the focus is not on individual women and men, but on the system which determines gender role and responsibilities, access to and control over resources, and decision-making potential. Now, what is the official definition of gender? According to FAO, gender is defined as the relationship between men and women, both perceptual and material. Gender is not determined biologically as a result of sexual characteristic of either men and women, but it is constructed socially. It is a central organizing principle of society and often govern the processes of production and reproduction, consumption, and distribution. The other definition of gender is the commonly shared expectation and norms within a society about appropriate male and female behavior, characteristic, and role. Gender can be considered a social and cultural construct that differentiate female from male and thus define the way in which female and male interact with each other. These roles and expectations are learned, and they can change over time as well as vary within and between culture. As I told you, there are social norms, there are social expectations that define our gender role, and these are vary between two culture as well as within culture. Now, difference between gender, sex, and sexuality. What is the difference? These are the three similar words which we often confuse and think that these they have the same meaning, but actually in gender studies, or in women's study, point of view of the women study, these are the different concept. So what is sex? Sex refers to biological characteristic or natural biological differences between men and women. For example, the difference in the organs related to reproduction. A person's sex is biologically determined as female or male according to certain identifiable physical features which are fixed. Women's marginalization has often been seen as a natural and a fact of their biology. Now, what is gender? Gender refers to the cultural, socially constructed differences between two sexes. It refers to the way society encourages and teaches the two sexes to behave in different through socialization. Gender and the hierarchical power relation between women and men based on these are socially constructed and not derived directly from biology. Gender identities and associated expectation of role and responsibilities are therefore changeable between and within culture. Now, sexuality. What is sexuality? Sexuality is distinct from gender, yet intimately linked to it. It is a socially construction of biological drive. An individual's sexuality is defined by whom one has sex with or what ways, why, under what circumstances, and with what outcome. It is more than sexual behavior. It is a multidimensional and dynamic concept. So basically, sexuality is the human being's sexual orientation in their emotional and sexual attraction to particular sex or gender, which often shape their sexuality. So sexuality are nothing but the tendency to physical attractiveness or sexual interest of human being toward male and female. It may be in the form of mental thought or desire or imagination or behavior or practice. So these are the meaning of sexuality. Now this is the pictorial representation of these three words. In a human body, sex is determined by the genital system, while the gender is basically a perception toward the role of male or female, which is changeable, which is learned, which we learn through socialization process. While the sexuality, that is the orientation towards sexual orientation towards male or female, which comes from our emotional or we can say it can be a mental thought, desire, imagination, behavior, as well as practice. So this is the pictorial representation of anatomy of sex, gender, sexuality, and expression. Now, difference between sex and gender. So these are the tabular form of the difference between sex and gender. As I have earlier told, when we talk about definition, it is sex is the biological and cosmological difference, whereas gender, social and not natural. There is no natural difference. Meaning refers to a physiological characteristic, while in gender it is cultural expectation and action. Aspect of change, difficult to change. We cannot change our sex through which we born with, whereas in case of gender, it is changed since gender identity is determined by the society. But when we talk about the role, so throughout history and across cultures, sex differences exist. We cannot say that male and female are the same. There are physical as well as internally change. There is a difference between male and female. whereas at different time in history and in different society, gender role are different. In terms of policy, policy respond to sex difference in area to do with the physical body, whereas in case of gender, policy can respond to gender stereotype and traditional gender role. Now, what is gender socialization? As I told you, we learn gender role through socialization process. Now, what is gender socialization? So, gender socialization is the process through which children learn about social expectation, attitude, and behavior typically associated with boys and girls. These are according to Encyclopedia of Early Childhood Development. So, it is your society who learned you the way how to behave in a certain way when you have a certain sex. So according to Henslin, gender socialization refer to the learning of behavior and attitude considered appropriate for a given sex. So Cynthia Vinay defined it as a gender socialization is the process by which we learn our culture's gender-related rules, norms, and expectations. So if we summarize this definition, we realize that gender socialization is the process in which one learns the behavior, attitude, and norms and understand the social and cultural expectation in relation to one's gender. Now, what are the agents of gender socialization? So there are different agents. First come from your family, that is parents. So parents are typically a child's first source of information about gender. From birth, parents communicate different expectations to their children depending on their sex. For example, a son may engage in more rough housing with his father while a mother takes her daughter shopping. So the child may learn from their parent that certain activities or toys correspond with the particular gender. For example, we give doll to girl to play while for our boys, we give generally a bike or car. So there are, in this way, we get to learn them. Their toys are different. Even their toys are different. So, a parent who emphasize gender equality may inadvertently reinforce some stereotype due to their own gender socialization. Now, second is teacher. Teacher and school administration model role sometimes demonstrate gender stereotype by responding to male and female student in different way. For example, in school, we separating student by gender for activity or disciplining student differently depend on their gender may enforce children's developing belief and assumption. For example, if we make a choir group for prayer assembly, in that choir group, mostly the girls are the members. While when we talk about the sports activity, generally we ask for boys to do anything. So in this way, teacher is also a very important, has a very important role in gender socialization. Now peers. Peer interaction also contributes to gender socialization. Children tends to play with some gender peer. Through this interaction, they learn what their peer expect of them as a boy and girl. This lesson may be direct, such as when a peers tell the child that a certain behavior is or is not appropriate for their gender. They can also be indirect as a child observe same and other gender peer behavior over time. These comments and comparison may become less overt over time, but adults continue to turn to some gendered peer for information on how they're supposed to look and act as a man or women. Now, in today's world, media is has a very important role in gender socialization. So, when we talk about media, media including movies, television, books, teach children about what it means to be a boy and girl. The media convey information about the role of gender in people's life and can reinforce gender stereotype. For example, consider an animated film that depict two female characters, a beautiful but passive heroine and an ugly but active. So these and countless other examples reinforces ideas about which behavior is acceptable and which behavior is not acceptable, and value which is more valued for a particular gender. Now, gender role. A gender role, also known as sex role, is a social role encompassing a range of behavior and attitude that are generally considered acceptable, appropriate, or desirable for people based on their actual or perceived sex. Gender roles are usually centered on conception of femininity and masculinity, although there are exception and variation. The specific regarding this gender exception may vary substantially among cultures, while other characteristics may be common throughout a range of culture. Gender role in society means how we are expected to act, speak, dress, groom, and conduct ourselves based upon our assigned sex. For example, girl and sex are generally expected to dress in a typical feminine way and be polite, accommodating, and nurturing. These are the uh, feminine characteristic which is required, which is expected by every female. uh, on the other hand, men are generally expected to be a strong, aggressive, and bold. This is generally the set of role and activities, expectations, and behavior assigned to female and male by society. So our culture recognize two basic gender role. One is masculine, having the qualities attributed to male, and second one is feminine, it means the attribute which is related to female. Now, nature of gender role. So we can say gender role are a learned behavior. These roles vary in their social, economic, and political dimension across culture. Values and norms differ widely from culture to culture. Gender role have certain universality, but are largely, this is culturally determined. Gender role are affected by a number of factors such as age, class, race, ethnicity, region, and ideology, in addition to geographical, economic, and political environment. Role may be complementary or conflicting. So, what are the factors that determine gender role or gender stereotype? So, these are the personality traits. Women are often expected to be accommodating and emotional, while men are expected to be self-confident and aggressive. Domestic behavior, sometimes some people expect that women will take care of their children, they will cook and clean the home, while men take care of finance, work on the car, and do the other home repair services. Some people are quick to assume that teachers and nurses are women, and that pilot and doctor and engineers are men. Even the occupation are also divided into two gender. Physical appearance. Women are expected to be thin and graceful, while men are expected to be tall and muscular. Men and women are also expected to dress and groom in a way that are stereotypical to their gender. For example, men wearing pant and short hairstyle, while women should wear dresses and makeup. The term gender was first coined by John Money in 1955 during the course of his study of intersex individual to describe the manner in which this individual expressed their status as a male or female in a situation where no clear biological assignment existed. The term gender role referred to society's concept of men and women are expected to act and how they should behave. These roles are based on norms or standards created by a society. Now exploring attitude toward gender. Attitude toward gender have been defined as an individual's belief about appropriate behavior for men and women. One's gender role attitude are likely to indicate her or his adherence to socially acceptable and culturally based norms that dictate behavioral standard in cross-sex relationship. Gender role attitude indicate the degree to which a person accept or reject socially acceptable and culturally based norms that dictate appropriate behavior that is gender specific. Social attitude survey have included attitudinal question asking about the role of men and women within a family, in particular around providing an income from work versus playing a caring role in the home. Example of gender role attitude includes such statement as men should open the door for women. Father and mother should participate equally in nurturing and caring for their children. Men are primarily responsible for earning money and providing for their family, and women should adopt their husband's surname upon after marriage. Gender role, attitude, and ideas about trait or tasks that are specific or inherent to a particular gender encourage us to stereotype or pigeonhole individual according to their gender. Obviously, this practice has negative implications for both male and female. However, gender bias in language, tradition, and the workplace has tended to historically favor men and produce undesirable consequences for women. So we can say, in total, we can say that in today's session, we have opened up the way to to look upon at the gender-based practice in community and school with a critical and healthy mind, and not only think about executed needed practice to realize a society where the concept of gender is nullified. Understand the concept and practice suggested in today's session and be pioneer to evolve a gender neutral society where every individual has a chance to achieve to his or her maximum capability and contribution for the good of humanity as a whole. So thank you so much.